I hope everyone's well. We've had a good couple of days in Europe. We've been in, if anyone follows the socials, we were in Manchester City last week versus Liverpool, which unfortunately Liverpool lost 4-1. And it doesn't help when all my staff members are all Manchester City fans. So they've been letting me know the scoreline about 600 times over. We've just spent the past 3 days in Barcelona. We had a visit to Wembley as well, to a cup final, which was amazing. And then also we've got another game to visit at the Camp Nou. We're going to Barcelona versus Girona on Monday, and then we're off to Real Madrid versus Chelsea next Wednesday. So we're going to be coming live from the Bernabeu next week. So one of the things that we've been talking about as a group and as a team this week was what we call time management and how you can manage your time better as a player. So one of the things that we used to do when I was at Leicester City, we used to keep what was called a time management diary. Now, does anyone actually keep a diary of your time management of what you do, whether that be, your school, you keep an eye on what activities you've got going on? What we're going to try and do is we're going to try and challenge you over the next couple of weeks and months just to keep a time management diary just for 1 week. And what we mean by that is if you go to school from the hours of 9 till 3, all we need to do is just put your time that you're in school. And then we also need you to put down what your time you wake up in the morning. So if you wake at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, you need to put that down on your time management diary. And then also between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock when you get to school, we want to know what you're actually doing. So some of you might train in the morning. Some of you might just get up and have breakfast and watch a bit of TV. We want you to put everything down that you do. So if you sit down and have breakfast for 30 minutes and you watch a bit of TV, I want you to put that down. Now, it's not something where we're going to look at and tell you off that you're doing something wrong. But the reason behind the diary is just to try and teach you and educate you a little bit around your time management. Because I've got players coming to me saying, oh, I don't have enough time to practice this particular part of the game. So it gives us a chance to actually go through your time management diary. And what we'll get you to do is just keep it on a piece of paper, down with a pen and a piece of paper. We'll get you to scan it in. Mum or dad can send it to us on an SMS or on an email, and we'll have a little look at it for you. Also, what we want you to put on that time management diary is things like when you go to training of an evening and what time you finish training. Also, what time you come in of an evening, and also what time is like lights out. So what time are you going to bed? You'd be amazed just by this time management diary. Now, it's not something that we have to do every week. It's something that we like you to do just for 1 week, just so we get a little bit of a snapshot of what your week looks like from a time management point of view. And then once we've had a little look at that, we can then actually find gaps in your week or in your month where we can actually see some issues. And that gives us a real good indication of areas where you actually notice there's times where you're wasting a lot of time, and also you're not utilizing your time best spent. The reason why we spoke about time management is because we've done a lot of research over the past 15 years looking at players and looking at world-class players. Players like David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, Mo Salah, all these players, Sam Kerr. We're wondering why they become the best players on the planet. And it's really, really simple because they're really good at time management. They know how to apply themselves and where to put the time. And they're the players normally that you would see on the training grounds, 20 minutes early, staying behind 20 minutes late. But also there's a lot of things that you don't see that goes on as well. And what we mean by that is they'll be doing all this additional practice when they were younger because they've been really, really good at managing their time, or their mums and dads have been really good at managing their time. Now, for most of you guys who are players with Euro football staff, it's hard for some mums and dads because some mums and dads work a lot. I'm one of those parents as well. I've got 2 daughters, and it's really hard to spend that time all the time being out with them doing the sport. But it's something that you boys and girls need to start getting good at if it's in a safe enough environment where you can go out and practice on your own. Now, what we're going to do is over the next couple of weeks, once we start sending you your football plan, which is backed off your match analysis results, we will start to share with you some activities that you can actually do on your own in the backyard or down at the park, where you can do those extra minutes, those extra 20, 25 minutes a day. That's going to make the difference in whether you can make it as a professional player or not. Is everyone okay with that so far? You all following it and hearing me okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, guys, just while I've got you all online, has anyone done anything similar to this before, or have you ever kept a diary before for your time management?
I have a timetable of like what I do.
Yeah, so that's fine, Ben. That's what you can do. You could use a similar timetable, and we're not looking for a lot of detail and a lot of information. We just want to know what time you wake up, what time you go to school, what time you finish school, what time you get in from school, what you've got on in the evening, just so we get a bit of a framework of where your hours are, when you're awake, when you're asleep, and then also when those key activities are. And that's a real good indicator to help us, to help you. And I will keep this information because we have a file and a folder for each of our players. And it just enables me. So if you ever come back to me and go, Ray, I don't have enough time in the day to do that, I can actually look at your diary and I'll go, Ben, I think you're not telling me the truth because I've got your diary and you've got 2 hours spare on a Friday, you've got 1 hour spare on a Sunday. You need to maybe go and utilize 20 minutes in that day. And it's good for you guys to start going through this process of time management. One of the big things that we had an issue with it when I was at Leicester City, we released a lot of players. It wasn't because they weren't good enough. It wasn't because they had bad attitudes. They actually got released because they were really bad at time management. So as an example, training session might start at 10 a.m. in the morning. That means, or I'm going to ask this question to you guys actually, if you've got a 10 o'clock session on the field, what time do you think you should be on the field ready to go and train? Anyone can answer.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. Oh, that'd be a keen player if I see someone at 9 o'clock on the training pitch. But yeah, you're sort of right. We expect you to arrive maybe 1 hour before. That's going to enable you then to turn up, get changed, get your football boots on. And then once you've got your football boots on, then you're ready to go down. Now, the good thing with arriving early is you can then squeeze in 20, 30 minutes of your own individual training. Now, what we used to do was at Leicester City and also at Liverpool, we'd actually have football pitches set up with a small mini tennis nets, and we would play a game of soccer tennis. So I used to always say to the players, if you turn up half an hour early, I'll be there with you and we'll play football tennis. Now, the players at the academy at Leicester, they love playing football tennis. So it's quite ironic that the two players that used to turn up 30 to 40 minutes early every training session to play football tennis with me and the other coaches was a boy called Harvey Barnes and a boy called Luke Thomas. And those two boys now play Premier League football for Leicester City. And everyone always thinks they're just lucky. They were just the lucky ones who made it. They weren't lucky. They understood time management. Mum and dad knew the importance of getting them there on time. And they were getting to practice an extra 20 to 40 minutes on every single training session to get better. So there's just one of the examples of why time management is so important. What happened was at the end of the year, we used to do a player review. And unfortunately, it was a common thing at the end of the season. 2 to 3 players were being released because they weren't turning up on time for sessions. They were coming to sessions at 4 minutes to 10 and they weren't prepared. They didn't have the boots on and they were holding up the session. So in the UK, if you turn up to a session a couple of minutes before it's starting and you're not ready and you don't have your kit and your boots on, my assistant coach would just go over and just have a conversation and you just get sent home for the day. And you'd just be told that you need to make sure you turn up with at least 15, 20 minutes earlier for that following session. So there's just an example of time management. And another one around time management as well is we have players on occasions would be missing games because they were going on family holidays or they were going on days away. Those things are completely fine as long as you let the club know and you let your coaches know well in advance. But on one occasion, we had a family and a player that forgot to tell us they were going away for a weekend and didn't turn up to the game, and they didn't communicate to us that they weren't coming. And unfortunately, released at the end of the season just because of that one area. And again, the time management, guys, it's not up to mums and dads to do that. That's up to you. Even if you're only 11 and 12 and 13, you need to start getting into some really good practices around time management and making sure that you're trying to be involved in communicating with your players, with your team coaches and people around you. So is everyone okay with that aspect of time management and keeping a diary for me? So what I need you to do is, whether it be next week or the following week, by the time I get back from Europe, which is around about the 17th or 18th of April, I want everyone to keep a time management diary for me. Now, guys, obviously I've said we're going to record this meeting tonight and we'll share this back with you. I'll also get my guys in the office in Brisbane. They'll send you guys an email about some of the areas that we've spoken about today, so then you won't forget. And as I said, all I need is, it needs to be quite simple, just a one pager with a day, Monday the 2nd, Tuesday the 3rd, or whatever the dates may be, and just do it for 7 days. The reason why we need 7 days, guys, because I need to see what your day looks like on a Monday all the way through to a Sunday. Probably starting at this weekend's not a good time because it's Easter and a lot of us are on holidays at the moment and having days off from training and school. So it's probably a good one to start once you get back to maybe your first week back at school. So it could be that week of around the 16th or 17th of April for most of us. So is everyone comfortable with keeping that diary for us for a week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Now, if anyone has joined the meeting late, because I've just noticed there's a few more faces just appeared. Mr. Pino, how are you?
Mr. Payne, how are you? Good.
Good to see you, mate. This is being recorded from the start, guys. So if you have joined the meeting late at all, don't worry. We've got all of it recorded and we're going to send it back to you. Now, speaking about diaries and schedules, we're going to get you to do one more thing for us as well. And we're not going to get you to do this straight away, but we'll get you to do this in probably about 4 weeks' time. We're going to get you to keep a nutrition diary for us, okay? Now, a nutrition diary is a little bit harder to do, but what we've got is, hopefully most of you boys and girls have got devices, so you'll have an iPhone or you'll have an iPad. We'll actually share an app to you via an email. So on the app, it will actually state a little bit around how you input your food and drink. So what we want you to do is we want you to record every single bit of food and everything that you drink normal. Guys, I don't want you to do the food diary and the nutrition diary for me. I don't want you to start really changing your diet during that week, okay? Because you know we're recording it and we're going to look at it. I want you to be super honest. So whatever you normally eat and drink, I want you to do a normal week for me, because you'll actually be surprised. Some of the things that you're eating and drinking that you think you shouldn't, actually you are fine to eat and drink. So when we do our nutrition diary widgets, we don't want you to eat and drink anything abnormal. We want you to try and keep a normal week, okay? Now, the thing with the food diary as well and the nutrition diary, as I said, we're going to share an app with you that's completely free of charge, and it allows you to record everything in there. We also need you to record your hydration. So that's things like your water and your drinks. It's really, really important you input everything. And again, we need that done from a Monday all the way through to a Sunday. We'll then have a look at it, me and my team back in Brisbane. We'll look at your food diary for you, and we'll actually give you a little bit of feedback and some information. And we're not going to radically change your diet. We're not going to say you need to become a vegan and anything like that. We're just going to have a look and just see if there's anything that we think's really hurting you in your game and your football journey. Or maybe we might recognize that there's certain things that you're not eating. I can give you an example on this one. We had a player at Leicester City and he was in the under-12s and he was a really small player for his age. Mum and dad were really small and they were around about 5'7", 5'8". And they said, oh, he's going to struggle. He's not going to be big enough when he's older. And he wasn't growing like the other boys. And everyone grows at different rates. So we got him in. We done a food diary for a week. Now, he was 12 years of age. And at the time, we worked out for his age, and considering the amount of work he was doing on the football field every day, he should be eating around. In fact, I'll throw this question out. Guys, if you're if you're 12 or 13 years of age, boy or girl, how many grams of protein do you think you need to eat to sustain for your body, but also to help your muscles grow? So can anyone have a guess? And I'll give you a clue. It's between 50 grams and 250 grams. Does anyone have a guess how many grams of protein you need to eat a day?
150.
Oh, that's a
200?
good guess.
120.
120. Any others?
200 maybe?
200. Okay, there's some good guesses there. So I think Finn was pretty close. So if you're around 12 and 13 years of age and you're a boy and girl, you need roughly between 140 to 160 grams of protein. Now, we actually discovered on this particular boy's food diary, he was only eating between 20 and 30 grams of protein. Now, he was eating a lot of carbohydrates because he had an Italian background, and mum and dad were filling him full of pasta, which is fine. And the carbohydrates are fine. That's completely fine. And we didn't need to actually change his carbohydrates. His carbohydrates were really good. But the big thing that we noticed was he wasn't eating enough protein. Once we changed his protein and we added in more protein, and I'll be honest with you guys, it's not easy to get that much protein into you. As an example, if you eat an egg, it contains between 7 and 10 grams of protein. So if you've got to eat 140 to 160 grams of protein, all of a sudden, potentially, if you only eat eggs, you would have to eat 15 eggs a day, which is not going to be good for your cholesterol. So you've got to maybe adapt your food. So you've got to start eating more fish, more chicken. If anyone is vegan or vegetarian, it is very, very hard to try and get that amount of protein into you. You can do it with things like pea protein. I went down this journey about 3 years ago. I became a vegan for 12 months just for my athletes, just to see what a vegan athlete has to go through. And I'll be honest with you, I ended up being a vegan for 14 months, but it was really, really, really hard to try and get that amount of protein into you. But again, if you are vegan or vegetarian, don't worry, we can help you with it and we can support you through it. But if you do eat meat and you do eat fish and chicken and steak, you're definitely going to have a little bit of an easier time eating that amount of protein. So in regards to the nutrition and the food diary, that's one of the reasons why we want to do that. It's basically just to make sure that you are eating enough carbohydrates, you're eating enough fats, but also you're eating enough protein. And they're the three things that we need to see on your plate every day. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for them good fats, we're looking for carbohydrates, and we're also looking for protein. So we're not necessarily looking to say, oh, as Mr. Pino sneaked a McDonald's in on Saturday, you shouldn't be eating a McDonald's. Okay, it's not like that at all, guys. We're just looking to make sure you've got the right amount of protein, carbohydrates, and fats going in. It's like with a car, guys. If you're driving a car around all day and you don't fill it up with fuel, eventually it's going to run out and it's going to stop. And that's exactly the same for you boys and girls. A lot of you boys and girls are putting in 10 to 12, 14 hours a week of training. You need to make sure you fuel your body. Now, the final one that we're going to talk about today before we open up for questions and answers is sleep. And again, this one we're not going to do straight away, but we're actually going to do a sleep diary in the next couple of months. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually put down what time you go to bed in the evening. And actually, we want you to record down what time you actually turn your lights out when you're trying to go to sleep. We don't need to know exactly what time you've gone to sleep, but we need to know what time lights go out, roughly, and then also what time you wake in the morning. Now, some of you might be lucky, and you might have what I've got on my wrist, and I've got an Apple Watch, the Ultra. This actually records your sleep. So if you are lucky enough to have a device that records your sleep, and mum and dad are okay with you recording your sleep and having a device on overnight, then we can do it that way as well, and you can get that data off your device. But if not, you can do it with a pen and a piece of paper again, and you can actually just record for 7 days, Monday to Sunday, what time you go to bed and what time you get up. So the importance of sleep, guys, is just as important as your nutrition and your hydration. Again, I'll give you an example. We had one boy who we knew was very, very talented. And actually, ironically, we had a girl when I was coaching the women's team at Leicester City. And we knew they were a lot better than what they were putting in at training. And when we actually done the sleep diaries with both of these players, we actually discovered that one of them ended up with something called sleep apnea, and she was actually struggling. She had an issue with her nose, and we actually managed to get that fixed. And 12 months later, she was sleeping fine and she was recovering properly. One of the boys we were discovering was just not having enough sleep. He was on his computer games till 1 a.m. Then he was getting up at 5 o'clock to hop back online again to play FIFA. And he was only getting in the region of 4 to 5 hours sleep a night, which is not enough for your body to recover. Your body's not only got to recover its muscles and its energy levels, but it's also got to process the food that's in your stomach to then provide you with energy for the next day. And that was just one of the things. So again, guys, we're not looking to be really strict and going, oh, one of you is being up on Friday night and you've been there, you know, you only had 4 hours sleep because you had a sleepover at a friend's place. We're just looking just to see across a Monday to Sunday, just to see where you're at with your sleep patterns. And again, guys, we'll include all this on the email. So we're going to cover off time management. We're going to cover off your sleep and also your nutrition. But the first one we're going to get you to attack is your time management. Then we'll get you to have a look at your nutrition, and then we'll have a look at your sleep diary as well. And we'll go from there on that one. Now, what we're going to do is for the next probably 10, 15 minutes, we're going to open up for some questions. And I hope everyone has managed to write a question down. Now, at the start, guys, if you missed the start of the meeting, I asked everyone to write down just one question. And I want you to come online and ask me the question. And it's got to be football related. So it could be something to do with your club training. It could be something to do with your development. It could be something to do with you struggling with your left foot. It could be anything to do football related, guys. And I'll answer that question as best as I can. And if I can't have, or I don't have the answer, I'll go away and find the answer for you. And I'll come back to you via email in the next 48 hours. So can I get someone to come forward with your first question for me?
Excuse me, right?
Yeah.
This
Hey,
isn't
mate.
about the soccer question, but you said we have to do the soccer diary, the time management.
Yeah.
On the following week. I'm still on school holidays that week, so do I do it the next week when I'm at school?
Yeah, that's good. What I did allude to earlier on was if you want to start it for your first week back at school. So I think most of you go back to school on the Tuesday. Some of you might go back on the Monday. You need to make sure you start it on your first day back in school and do it for 7 days. So if you go back in on the Tuesday, your last day should be the Monday. If you go back in on the Monday, your last day should be the Sunday. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've got school holidays for another 2 weeks, but
you've got another 2 weeks after that. That's okay. Well, what you'll do is you'll start it when you go back to school, and I'll include that on the email for everyone, because I know some of you are in Victoria, some of you are in WA, some of you are in Queen. I think we've got players in every different state of Australia at the moment. So, yeah, but once you go back to school, that's when we want you to start your time management, because that's what we want to look at, what your normal week looks like.
yeah, thank you.
That's a great question, mate. Okay, guys, can I get one of the first football questions from someone?
Yeah, I'll go.
Who have I got? Who's talking?
Tom.
Hey, Tom.
So, as a striker, I like a good professional type striker. In a game, what would be a good shot to goal ratio?
Shot to goal ratio.
Be looking at?
You should be looking at hopefully in and around about. It's hard because it just depends on the type of team you're playing. If you're playing a very defensive-minded team who are sitting back and defending deep, your shots to ratio might still be high, but they're going to be coming from around the edge of the 18-yard box. Where if teams are playing, we probably you want to be looking for ideally something in the region of 4 to 8 shots in each half of the game. If you're performing at that top level, you should be hitting between 4 and 8 shots in a half of football. If you're not, it could be down to your teammates not providing you with the ball and not getting the ball. But most good strikers would be getting what we call 4 to 8 key opportunities in each half. And then the conversion rate would be looking for around about 66% of them shots need to be on target. And out of them 66% on target, we'd look for about 20% of the actual goals.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Great question.
Ray, I have a question.
Yeah, go for it, Ben.
So as a winger, how many touches would I need to have in a 90-minute match?
So as a wide player, again, it can be a little bit subjective with this one, but we'd look for you to what we call one action moment every 2 minutes in a game. So whether you're a defender, a midfielder, or an attacker, what you'll see is once we do your first match analysis, you'll see those action minutes in the game, and we'll be able to play those videos back for you. We'd actually look for you to be involved in the game and touch or be involved on the ball at least once every 2 minutes. So in a half of football, that would equate to about 22 occasions. So across a whole match, if you play 90 minutes, we're looking for you to be around 40 or more action moments in the game. If I don't see 40 action moments and you play 90 minutes, we've got a problem. Only if I see that in 2 or 3 games in a row, and I'll say, Finn, we need to start seeing you getting on the ball more. It could be because you're going into space too much and you need to come into the game a little bit more and get involved more. I have had 1 or 2 players recently on match analysis. I had one girl who I work with, and 2 games in a row, she only got on the ball 7 or 8 times in the whole match. And it was a confidence thing. As soon as we worked on her confidence and we built it up on her confidence, and I actually had a conversation with a coach to help her with it, all of a sudden now she's starting to do 30 to 40 active touches on the ball in a game. So that's a great question, Ben. That's a really good one. Thank you.
Ray, I have another question.
We'll go with Sam first. I think you popped up just first there. So go on, Sam.
So when it's a goal kick and I play centre, I go out wide to receive the ball. Should I be able to drive or pass the ball?
As a centre back?
Yeah.
Well, the way the rules have changed now, so you can actually receive the ball now inside the 18-yard box from the goalkeeper. So I would say I'd be a little bit smart to think, and we don't really want to encourage you in a defensive third to be taking players on or driving with the ball. I would definitely prefer my players to find a pass to feet, or if you can get that ball long enough over the halfway line, I'm happy for you to play it to space in behind. I'm a little bit sort of reluctant in defenders driving out with the ball, only because if you drive out with the ball, there's a chance that you may lose the ball and it may be taken from you. And then all of a sudden, you've literally might have 1 or 2 defenders behind the ball to maybe try and win it back. If you're an attacking player and you can drive to space, then that's a completely different thing. But yeah, for me, I would definitely be looking to play the ball to feet or to space rather than driving the ball out. That's my preference, and that's what I've seen over 20, 25 years of football that I think works best. I'm just a little bit scared of centre-backs trying to drive. I mean, if you've got your head up and you've got 15 metres of space to drive into, obviously you can attack that space, but just make sure you're not attacking it for too long. Make sure you release the ball as soon as you get an opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
Does that make sense? Great question, Sam. I love it, mate.
I'll go, right.
Who is it?
It's Ryan of Villa.
Hey, mate, how are you?
Good, thanks. How many hours a week do you recommend I train?
All right, that's a great question. I love that one. So I was very fortunate when I was at Leicester and we worked on the EPPP project. One of the areas that we looked at with some of the big universities in the UK, and we worked with a university called Loughborough Uni, and we looked at the correct amount of hours an athlete should do. So whether you're a football player or a tennis player, it's called the +1 theory. And what we got from this is, in a nutshell, if you're 13 years of age, you should be doing 14 hours of activity a week. If you're 17 years of age, you should be doing 18 hours of activity. So it's +1 your age. So how old are you again?
16, 15, sorry.
15. So you should be doing roughly 16 hours. Now, of those 16 hours, this is where it gets a little bit tricky now. Of those 16 hours, 70% should be specific to football. So if you're training with club, if you're going down the park to practice with friends, if you're practicing on your own, if you're playing a match on a game day, that all includes in that 70%. If you've got anything outside of football, then that 30% can be made up of things like running, recovery running, swimming. You might go and play a bit of tennis with friends, whatever it may be. But out of those 16 hours, 70% needs to be football specific and 30% needs to be non-specific. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Now, if you look at your hours, if your hours are 20 hours, then I'd say you're doing a little bit too much and your body's probably not going to be able to recover properly. If you're maybe going over by an hour or under by an hour, I don't think there's going to be too big of a problem. And this is a task. This is something that we will go through with you guys individually as well. We will reach out to you and we will your hours and we'll look at hours. And that's part of the diary that we're going to keep on your time management. So that will be highlighted in your time management diary. And that's one of the key things, the key indicators that we look out for. Great question, mate.
Awesome,
Guys, can I
thank
get
you.
the next? Can I get the next question?
I have a question for you.
Who's that?
Maya.
Hey, Mayor, how are you, mate?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, Mayor.
So I'm a part of the Central Queensland TSP program, and they give us an app to schedule all of our things that we do. And if
Yeah.
you go over a certain amount of training time, they make you not play or train. So the training time is 3 hours.
Okay.
What do you recommend I do? Do I put in the information of me training or not?
Yeah, so what they're saying, if you do more than 3 hours in one day, they don't want you to train anymore.
No, in a week. It's
So if you train for more than 3 hours a week, they don't want you to train anymore.
yeah.
Wow, that's scary. That's really scary. Okay, yeah. If you've got any information around that, if you don't mind sharing that, I'll get Mum to share that to me because I'm going to go and challenge them over that because that's not good.
Yeah.
So just remind me again, May. Are you 13, 14?
Yes, 13 turning 14.
Okay, so for you should be doing 14 hours a week of activity. You should be doing 70% of that, which is roughly around about 9 hours. 10 hours should be football specific. And then that 3 or 4 hours should be done non-specific. So that could be things like going for a walk, doing a recovery run, swimming, tennis, bike riding, rock climbing, just something a little bit different that's going to move different parts of your body. But if they're telling you only to do 3 hours a week of training and no more than that, that's really, really scary. Yeah, you are not going to develop as a player doing 3 hours a week. You'll develop as a good player, but you'll be at best a social player at best. You would not continue to play sort of that TSP MPL level. Did they give you that on an email or a document, or is it just on the app? Or
There's a Smarterbase app that we have to log into and give information about it to.
okay, all right. If you can get Mum or Dad to share that information with me on an email, and I'll have a look at it. And yeah, I'll probably give you guys a response on how we need to have a look at that and how we deal with that one. But just for everyone who's online at the moment, 3 hours of football is not enough to make it as a player, and that's definitely not the required to make it as a player as well. Great question, Maya. Thank you for informing us of that.
Thank you.
I've got a question.
Yeah, who's that?
It's Kobe.
Hey, Kobe, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. As a central midfielder, how can I train and improve my spatial awareness?
Spatial awareness, that's a great one. So the big thing for spatial awareness, and that's probably the best thing of being a centre midfielder, I go back to, you guys are probably too young to remember, but he was an amazing football player. He used to play for Manchester United called Paul Scholes. And the big thing that Paul used to do is what I'm doing at the moment. Just constantly scanning and turning his head. It's really hard to replicate that one on your own. You need to be in a team environment, and there's certain sessions that we used to teach in the UK. So when I was at Liverpool, when I was at with the younger boys, but also at Leicester City and PSG, actually, we do a specific session on what we call position specific. So as an example, today I might go to training and I go, right, I'm going to take all the midfielders, you're going to come with me today, and we're going to work on position specific for midfield. And exactly the question that you just asked, working around that spatial awareness. So what we'd do was we used to get into a box in a square, and we'd have 4 players on the outside, and we'd have 2, 3, or 4 players on the inside. And all we were doing, we were literally just doing a possession game, but it might have been inside the square, it might have been a 2v2, it could have been a 3v2. The players who were positioned on the outside, they were basically just what we call wall passes, if that makes sense. So what we're looking for is when you receive the ball within that tight square, as the ball's coming in, if you scanned before you received the ball, and then you turned and then played the pass to someone on the outside, that gives you 2 points. If you didn't scan, then, and you got the ball and played it to someone, you only got 1 point. So what we were trying to encourage was you scanning, which is then going to encourage you for that spatial awareness. Does that make sense? Now look, Kobe, what you can do is you can actually set that one up yourself. If you can get, you can even ask the coach. I'll share the session with you and ask your coach and just say, look, I'd love to do this session. Can we do it for 10, 15 minutes as a warm-up game? I'm sure if your coach is any good, he'll look at it and go, well, yeah, there's going to be benefits to all the team doing it. Or if you can muster, 8 to 10 players in a warm-up and you get there a bit earlier, it's a good way of doing it. But on that one, with spatial awareness, there's an objective that we can get you to do as well in your game days. And it's getting, Kobe, when you go to your games, does anyone ever come to watch, mum or dad or a family member? Or
Yeah, usually my parents come.
Yeah, so you can get mum or dad. They can literally just get a piece of paper and a pen. And what they can do is every time the ball gets played to you, before you receive the ball, if you scan, okay, they'll give you a big tick. If you don't scan before the ball arrives and you receive the ball, you get a cross, right? At the end of the game, you might have 10 ticks and you might have 10 crosses. That means your objective for spatial awareness, scanning, turning your head, is working at 50%. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the next time you go into a game, mum and dad again will do that recording for you and go, oh, wow, you got 70%. So you can see yourself getting better. Now, where a lot of players go wrong, they try and focus on passing the ball, receiving the ball, shooting, taking players on. Now, forget that. Focus on one objective and get one objective right. And it might take you 6 months to get it right. It might take you 1 year to get it right. But if it comes right, you're going to be an amazing player, because if you're constantly scanning and turning your head and looking all the time, in turn, that's going to make you more spatially aware. And if you're spatially aware, you already know at your age, that's an important attribute of being a midfielder. You're just going to see the game differently, because all of a sudden you're going to get a full 360-degree view on the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Great question, Colby. I love it. Thank you.
Hey, Ray, I got a question.
Who's that?
Jules,
Hey, mate. How are you?
good yourself?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
I was just asking, any tips on for players like myself coming from like an under 21s, under 23s setup and breaking into a first team?
Yeah, one of the things that I would definitely look at straight away for yourself would be that age relative that we spoke about before. So what we do is, what I didn't explain is, when you get to 17, you should be doing 18 hours of physical activity. So the first thing I would be doing is looking to make sure you're getting to 18 hours of activity a week. Now, once you get to 18, we don't go above 18. It sticks at 18 hours a week. And of those 18 hours, you should be doing 70% specific to football, 30% non-specific. That would be the first area I would attack. Now, I've done this before with players in the past, and I've actually discovered that a lot of players tend to do around about 12, 13, 14 hours of general activity. And I've had a lot of players who come to me and go, Ray, it's neon impossible to do 18 hours of activity a week because I work full time or I study full time. So again, we then go back to our diary, our time management diary. So once we look at that time management diary, sorry guys, I've just got a lot of people singing outside the stadium. I don't know if you can hear that or not. But yeah, if you look at that time management diary and you look at your hours, that's where I can then go, right, Jules, let me have a look at your diary and let's see how we can attack to find gaps in your week. Now, if you are time poor and we can't find the gaps, then I have to come up with other ideas for you. But that would be the first area I would attack. Just out of interest, Jules, do you know roughly what you do in a week, hours?
Not off the top of my head, no, but I'll probably wouldn't say 18. I'd probably say, like you said, probably about 15, 13, 14, 15.
Yeah, and trust me on this one, it's amazing just by changing one thing, looking at your time management and looking at the amount of hours you do. Just that one change sometimes is all you need to make it, and it's literally that. And it's not the fact that we're looking for you to go out and do those extra 3-4 hours to go and do sprint training or running. A lot of it might just be adding in some recovery work, and it could just be that you're not recovering properly as well, and that's stopping you from pushing through to the next level. Also as well, it's also important to look at your sleep and also your nutrition, and that's why for this first Zoom call that I'm doing with all of you today, we really touch on the beginning, the foundation, the basics, because I tend to find once we look at sleep and nutrition and the amount of hours you should be doing on a weekly basis, 9 times out of 10, you will be falling down on 1, 2, or 3 of them areas. And once we fix them, it's really strange, but this magic thing happens. You start to get better at football and you start getting into the top team and you start to make it as a professional player. Does that make sense?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Great question, Jules. Thank you. Guys, is there anyone else for any other questions?
I have a question, Ray.
Who's this?
Zane.
Hey, Zane, how are you, mate?
Good, thank you.
Go on, Zane, fire away.
If you're like a striker or a winger, how do you time your run so you get the ball at the right time when a through ball happens?
Great question. So 2 things you've got to do with this one, and I used to love teaching this to the under 12s at Leicester City. What we need to make sure we do is, if you are in that position and you've got a defender in front of you, the best way to do it is stand 2 meters behind them, okay? So they feel confident that they've got you covered and you're giving them a 2-meter distance. The problem with this one is you've got to do a lot of runs where you'll make runs and you'll never get the ball. 1, because your teammate doesn't see you. 2, because it's the time and just doesn't work out right. But the way we coach it, we get you to be 2 meters before the defender, and then you just make that sprint in behind the defender. Now, 80% of the time, you're not going to get the ball. However, 1 or 2 things are going to happen. The defender's going to go with you, and every time you make that run, the defender's going to run away with you, which is going to create space in front of that defender for your teammate to get into. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The second thing that might happen, and I see it happens a lot in Australia, when you make that run in behind, the defender doesn't follow you. And that's also a good thing. And once your teammates see that, your teammates will start playing the ball to space. And that's the final thing. So what you need to make sure you do, Zane, you need to have a conversation with your teammates. It might be your centre midfielders and say, look, I'm going to be making these runs today. I don't want you to give me the ball to feet. I want you to give me the ball to space. Because if he hits the ball to space, you've got a chance to have a run in behind the defender. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you receive the ball to feet and that defender's goal side, that means the defender's got a chance to take the ball from you. So you need to just make sure on those 3 things. Make sure you've got 2 meter distance. Make sure you're making lots of runs, even when you don't think you're going to get the ball. Just make the run anyway, just to work out if the defender's going to go with you or not. If the defender does go with you, well, you're going to start creating lots of space for your teammates to get into. And if he doesn't go with you, that's also a good thing, because that means you know your teammate can play you into space in behind. Now, by starting 2 meters this side of the defender, if your teammate plays that ball, are you going to be onside or offside?
Onside.
Onside, because you're starting 2 meters behind the defender. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you, Ray.
Great question, mate. I love it. Guys, have you
Ray,
got any
coming
more
off that
questions?
question,
Yeah, who is it? Sorry.
Maya.
Hey, Maya.
So, as a centre midfielder, would you rather have, while they're on that run, have a ball along the ground or in the air?
It depends on the moment. I'm a big fan on playing the ball a little bit more in the air at the moment, because I think we've got carried away. And thanks to these guys in Spain, we play a lot of tiki-taka and a lot of football on the ground. And I think that's really, really good to a point. But one of the things that I've found is that teams and defenders are starting to get really good at intercepting the ball and defending the ball really easy along the ground. So I'm a big fan of what we call balanced football. So you might play one on the ground in between the defender and the centre back, but then your next one, you might look to play that ball just over. Now, we probably look for 2 areas. If I'm a midfielder, one of the things I would look for, and I'm going to ask you this question, Maya, see if you know the answer. If you're playing against a team and their defenders are playing very high, what type of ball do you think we should be playing, along the floor or over the top?
Over the top.
Over the top, yeah, right answer. If they're playing a little bit more defensive and they're sitting more closer to the 18-yard box, that's when we might look to play it along the floor and in between the centre back and the full back, or in between the 2 central defenders. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Great, good question, Maya. Guys, anyone got any other questions?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yeah, who's that?
Ryan.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, I play winger and striker. My coach has been playing me out of position recently. And now, what do I do about that? Because I play a bit physically for my position, and he plays me. Sometimes plays me centre back. Sometimes he plays me as a fullback.
Yeah, I've had this one a lot. So I'll give you a quick example on this one. I had a boy who was scoring 40+ goals in the NPL for 2 seasons in a row. A new coach came in to coach him, and he got told he wanted him as a central defender. And I know why he chose him to be a central defender, because he knows he's a really strong player and he can play in most positions relatively well. So we actually attacked this in 2 ways. We went in and asked to speak with the coach. And unfortunately, sometimes if I speak to coaches at clubs, they get very defensive and don't want to speak to me, which I don't really get, because it's, they've got someone who knows a little bit about football. They should be able to have the conversation, especially when you guys, most of you pay fees to be at a club. So you're paying for a service. They should enable a chance to speak. It didn't work out going well doing it that way. So what we had to then do was we had to make that tough decision where we come out of the NPL system. We put him in divisional football, and he actually played up a couple of age groups, which didn't actually hinder or affect his time on the pitch. But the best way you can attack it is to ask. I've got another question I want to ask you first before I answer this for you. So, in regards to your position playing higher up the field, is that the position you've played the most over the past 5 or 7 or 8 or 9 years?
Yeah.
So that's the position you're really strong in, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. And how old are you again?
15.
15. So you need to go and have the conversation with the coach and go and approach the coach and go, look, I've been playing in this position for 7 or 8 years or 9 years, whatever it may be, and this is my strongest position. You're currently playing me at centre back at the moment. Can I ask why you're playing me there? Now, the coach will hopefully give you the answer, and he'll give you 1 or 2 answers. And I'll guarantee it won't be the latter, it'll be the first. He'll say to you, it's because he needs you to do a job in there and help the team out. He won't actually say to you, I don't think that he's doing it for your development and he's trying to help you with your development. He'll probably say he thinks you're a really good defender and that's where he sees you as a position. You need to then challenge him. I want to be developed as a player in this position because I've played in this position for 7, 8, 9 years. And I want to basically play in the team in that position. If that means I've got to sit on the bench and I've got to prove myself in training a bit more, I'm willing to do that because I don't really want to play in that position as a defender. I'm happy to help the team out. And if a player gets sent off or there's an injury, I'm happy to step up and do it for a couple of games. But I really want to focus on my development as a wide player or as an attacking player. And then hopefully he'll have that conversation back with you and he'll give you his opinion on where it sits. And then what I would recommend is, once you've had that conversation with him, give me an email or give me a call and I'll tell you what to do with the next steps on this way and how we attack it. It is a bit of a tricky one, this one, but I tend to find there's a lot of players just get pushed in incorrect positions. Going back to the boy who I had who was scoring 40 plus goals a year and he got asked to play at centre back and we point blank refused to allow him to play there. He then dropped into a divisional team. He then got invited back to the squad 6 months later to be the striker. And I think he went on and scored 17 goals in the last 14 games. He then went on to sign a professional contract in the UK and he's now playing pro football in the UK. So for me, guys, if you're 11 or 12, it's a really good thing to move around different positions and experience different positions for your development. But if you're 15, 16 or older, you should really be honing your position. You should be playing in your strongest position as much as you can. Does that answer your question, mate?
Yeah, thank you.
So just let me know how you go with your coach. Just go and have the conversation with him and see if he can give you some answers as to why you're playing there and see if he can tell you why or how long you'd expect it to play there. Now, if he goes, I'm going to have you there for the rest of the season, then you need to say, well, look, I'm not happy with that. And I want to work my socks off to get in the position I think I'm the best at. Can you help me how I can do that? And then you just feed that information back to me and I'll help you on how the best way to attack it. But great question, mate. Thank you. Guys, have you got any more questions?
Ray, I have a question.
Okay.
So I've had a lot of scenarios where I'm on the wing and I'm 1v1ing against a player. Then I have like all my teammates screaming my name, but then instead of passing it back because I'm facing the goal, I go and 1v1 the player. Then after that, when we finish the 1v1, when I'm dropping back into my position, my team always says to me, why do you not pass? Why do you not pass? So should I just keep on just going for 1v1s and after that in a scenario where I have to pass, I pass? Or should I just pass the ball to make them happy?
Now, if you're in a 1v1 situation and you're playing in the 7 or 11, so that means you're out wide and high. If you're ever in a 1v1 situation, for me, you're going at that fullback every single time. If your teammates are complaining about the pass back, you just need to explain to them that you're in a 1v1 situation and the idea of football is about the team that scores the most goals. By playing the ball back, what we call a negative pass, if I've got a 7 or 11 who's playing out wide and he's in a 1v1 situation, if he plays the ball back towards our own goal, if he does that twice in a game, I'm taking him off. He's getting substituted. You're there to do a job, and your job is to try and set up and assist goals. Now, if it's a 2v1 or a 3v2, then that's a different scenario. You might play the ball back to a teammate, and then you attack that space in behind. And we spoke about it before on one of the other questions where you're 2 meters behind a defender. You'll play the ball, then you'll go and attack that space to pull the defender with you. But 100%, if you're in a 1v1 situation, just turn your ears off to those other players and they'll get it eventually. They'll get it. And the more successful you get in the 1v1s, they'll go, Finn's doing a good thing for the team, and they'll get it eventually. And hopefully your coach will actually speak to the team as well and go, with any of our players that are in 1v1 situations, we're always taking that player on. We're trying our best to beat that player because at the end of the day, if we're not trying to score goals, then what are we doing on the football pitch?
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going tight for time. I've got time for one more question. So does anyone else want to ask one more question before we finish?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay, go for it, mate. Kobe.
So when I'm trying to beat players like with the first touch and beat the press, I have a lot of like success and failure, like it's on and off. And I was wondering if there's any details that I need to look for, like in what I need to do and what to look for, like trying to exploit the spacing behind them to beat the press.
Okay, so we're talking about, so just remind me, what position are you playing again?
As a 6 or an 8.
As a 6 or an 8, and the opposing team, so you're in possession, they're pressing you, they're stepping up high.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a really good one. So to expose teams who are pressing early, we do what's called a double negative pass. And I'll explain a little bit more about this on a document in the next few months for everyone. But we basically, in football, we have 4 lines of football. We have the goalkeeper, the defenders, the midfielders, and the attackers, right? To play what we call a double negative pass as a midfielder, you've got to skip the defenders and go back to the goalkeeper. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the fine detail we look for. So what we would look for is, if it's safe to do so, we would look to skip your defenders and go back to the keeper. And that will enable that press to come a little bit higher. But you've got to have that communication with your goalkeeper. And what you can say to your goalkeeper, it's a dead simple one. When you're lining up in a tunnel to go out for your game, have a chat with your goalkeeper. What's your goalkeeper called?
Seth.
Yeah. Seth, look, if I play you a ball back today from centre mid, do me a favour. Please make sure when I play that ball, look to play that ball first time over the top of the defenders, because you know full well if that team are pressing, and especially when you play what we call a double negative, they think, they're worried, they're playing it back to the goalkeeper, they're going to press a little bit higher again, and then all of a sudden you and your attacking team can get in behind. Now the chances are, when your goalkeeper plays that pass, you're going to be behind the halfway line, which means you can't be offside. Yeah. And that's a good way to beat a team with a press. Jose Mourinho was the master at it when he was at Chelsea. He used to do a double negative pass all the time. If you watch back any of the tapes when he was head coach at Chelsea, they used to do it all the time. And teams were like, we're going to press them and squeeze them. The next thing, the long ball will go straight over the top. And the midfielders, they had a player called Claude Makelele, who was a French player, and he was amazing at it. And the amount of times he'd open up that space all the time. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, great question, guys. Well, guys, we're going to have to end it there because I've only got 1 hour at a time connected to this one Wi-Fi, and it's just reminding me I've got 30 seconds. But a big thank you, guys, to all the questions. A big thank you for everyone giving me your time on a Friday. What we'll do is, this meeting's recorded. I'll share this back to you all on a link in the next 48 hours. And also, if you've got any more questions, save them up. And when we do our meeting next month, I think our next meeting, we're going to be coming live from Brisbane in Australia. And then the one the following month, we're going to be coming live from Istanbul from their Champions League final over in Turkey. So guys, a big thank you. I'll be in touch with you all on emails, and I'll speak to you all over the next few days anyway. But that's me, over and out from Barcelona, guys. See ya.
See you, Ray.
Ray.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.